Hi, welcome to 4.6 on factoring trinomials, and we're on page 12 of your packet. And this is factoring trinomials day 1, because we're going to do a second day on factoring trinomials. So this is something that you're going to take a look at if you have a trinomial. Some of them are able to be factored in a way where we are doing two binomials that would be multiplied by each other. So it's basically the opposite of what we were doing when we were using the distributive property to multiply, or when we were using the box method or the grid method to multiply. So here's the first thing that we're going to do. We are going to find a pair of factors whose sum is your b value. And by b value, I'm saying like ax squared plus bx plus c. And we want factors of c. So let's take a look at how we would do that. So I'm going to make a little t-chart, and my t-chart, the first part is going to be factors, and that's going to be of -6 right here. So I'm looking at my c value, and then I'm going to do the sum of those factors, and I want the sum of those factors to match up with b, which in this case is 1. So I want their sum to be 1. So for instance, the first factor that I'm thinking of -6 is -6 and 1. If I add those together, that's -5, and that's not what I'm looking for. So that's not what I'm going to do. And I'm realizing that if I do 6 and -1, well, I can do that too if I want to. But if you can do some of them in your head and realize that's not the one you want, that's okay too. So next I'm going to do -3 and 2, because that's the next one I'm thinking of. And if I add those together, I'm going to get -1, which is kind of close, but not exactly. So I'm going to switch those around and say 3, -2, which is 1. So that's what I'm looking for right there. And that's the first step. Your second step is to make yourself a pair of parentheses. So I make myself a pair of parentheses, and then I'm just going to fill in the blanks. Now, my first terms are easy, because what times what equals x squared? X times x equals x squared. So that's easy if you just have an x, if you don't have any coefficient at the beginning. And then we're just going to put these numbers in. So this is +3, so it'll be +3. And this is -2, so it'll be -2. And that's your answer right there. And then we're going to go over here and we're going to do our check. So if I do x plus 3 times x minus 2, and I multiply them, so I'm going to do x times x is x squared, x times -2 is -2x, 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times -2 is -6, x squared, -2 plus 3 is +1, so positive x minus 6, and that checks out, so it works. Okay, let's try another one. So over here, now that you know what that means, I'm going to simplify a little bit. So my t-charts look like that, standing for factor and sum. So I've got 9. I usually think about 9 times 1 first. I add them together, I get 10. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to get a -6, because that's my b value. So I'm going to try 3 and 3, and that gives me +6. So I know that's not quite what I'm looking for, but if I have -3 and -3, that's still going to give me +9, but my sum is going to be -6. So that's what I'm looking for. You don't have to do all of the factors. You can just look for the factors that you need. Once you find it, you're done. So now I'm going to make x and x, and I've got -3 and -3, and then I'm done. Ooh, and this one I'm noticing they're the same, so I'm going to write it like this. You don't have to, it's just nicer looking. So then I'm going to do my check. X minus 3 times x minus 3, x squared, and then -3x, -3x, and then -3 times -3 is +9. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9, and that's what I had to begin with, so I'm good. Okay, I'm going to show you two more that have a little something different in them, because of course they can't all be the same. So we're going to go down here. This is the second one from the bottom on the left, and here I'm noticing that I have a 3 in front of my x, so I wouldn't just be able to put x and x in the beginning of my parentheses. So the first thing I'm going to do is look to factor out a GCF. So 3 goes into this one, 3 goes into this one, and 3 goes into this one. So I can factor out a 3, and then when I divide that by 3, I get x squared. Divide that by 3, I get 4x. Divide that by 3, I get 12. Now I'm going to do my little t-chart, so my factor and my sum. And my factors, let's do -4 and 3. That gives me -1, so that's not what I'm looking for. I'm going to do 2 and -6, and that is what I'm looking for. So that's what I'm going to stick with. So I'm looking to match this right here, and it is -4. So now I do my parentheses, and I have to put my 3 in front. So now I'm going to do x and x, because those multiply together to get x squared, and then plus 2 minus 6, and then that's my final answer. And then in my check, I checked it and it does work, but you don't have to watch my check. Okay, one more down here. This one you'll notice has two variables. We have an x squared and we have a y squared in there. So it's going to be a little bit different, but it's kind of an easy fix. So let's do our factors and our sums. For 18, I'm thinking -6 and 3 to begin with. That gives us -3, so that's not what we're looking for. Let's do 2 and -9. That is -7, and that is what we're looking for. So this is what's going to help us. We can't factor anything out. There's nothing in front of the x, so we're just going to do our parentheses, and we have x and x. Now I'm going to put plus 2, but notice this is going to be -18y squared. So I'm going to put a y on there, and then over here with my -9 or -9, I'm going to put a y here, because when I multiply those together, that's going to give me -18y squared. And if you run through the check, it does work. Okay, please try the rest of these. Pause it and give it a try. Remember, you're starting with your factor sum t-chart, and then you're going to do your parentheses and go from there. Please make sure that, here, we'll talk about that later. I'm going to go ahead and put the answers up. Okay, write down anything that you have questions on, and we will talk about it in class.